All right, you know what it is? You know who it is? I'm back with another video. So today, we're talking about MAP 10. If you saw my video last week, I had a video about aerobic capacity. We're talking about sustainability. We're talking about breathing. I'm gonna dive into this whole progression. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff on here that I want you guys to pay attention to, and I want you guys to see and kind of learn about. What I wanna do in these next few weeks is I wanna take you through the progressions. I wanna take you through step 1 through step 10, all right? And it's kind of backwards because this is step 1 is step 10 and step 10 is step 1. But I wanna kind of take you through this whole process and show you what I've been doing and how you guys can implement it and kind of get yourself up to this point so we can start this progress. So, MAP 10, this is the start of our aerobic progression. So this is step 1 for becoming aerobic AF. As you can see that I use that a lot. But what we have here is a 60-minute interval at a sustainable pace. So MAP 10 is one 60-minute interval that we are trying to accomplish for a sustainable pace, that we're doing unbroken without stopping, trying to find a sustainable pace. What does that mean? Sustainable pace means that the individual could have kept going if I asked them to. So the 60 minutes is up and I say, hey, so-and-so, do you think you could have gone for another hour if I asked you to? They're like, yeah, probably. Then it's like, all right, you hit that perfect. Hey, so-and-so, do you think you could have hit that for another hour? I don't even know if I could go another 5 seconds. And it's like, all right, you probably didn't do that right. You didn't find the right pace, but that's what this is all about. So this pace, how do you find your race pace? And I mentioned this last week that this aerobic capacity and this sustainability progression allows us as the instructors to kind of individualize, well actually really individualize what someone is looking for. So for this to find your race pace essentially, so if you're doing a marathon or you're doing, in my case, jiu-jitsu, or you're doing something that requires a time frame in which you have to complete work, this is how you find your pace. So you find your pace, you multiply it by 4, and that's your race pace. So 60 minutes times 4 is 4-hour race pace. So that's the pace we're trying to sustain here. And what this gives you is an idea that you should be able to hold this pace for 4 hours. You should be able to hold this pace at the same rate for 4 hours. And that sounds like a long time, but it's just in theory, and it's just kind of to give you a better idea of what you're trying to do. So, one of the main things about MAP 10 is simplicity before complexity. Now, the reason MAP 10 is so effective is because it's 60 minutes. It forces you to be sustainable. I don't know a lot of people that can do, deadlifts or squats or high intensity movement patterns for 60 minutes. Again, this makes you become aerobic. You have to do something sustainably, unbroken for 60 minutes. This is really good. And to do this, a lot of these movements have to be simple. Low skill, because, other things, there's other variables and limiting factors that come into a lot of movements, as opposed to just a 60-minute sustainable, easy bike ride. So the thing over here I have starred are kind of the important aspects of MAP 10. This is used a lot within recovery efforts. So, you've had a hard week, you've had a hard training cycle, and, throughout the week, you'll sprinkle this in for recovery. This is the beginning stage of pace development. So 60 minutes on a bike is gonna make you find a pace. You're gonna have to find a pace, develop a pace, you're gonna learn about your pace, and this is gonna put you in a position where this is the starting point for the rest of this progression. Here is where we develop our pace, and we incrementally progress that over the coming weeks. And continuous work for 60 minutes is another important thing. This needs to be continuous. This needs to be unbroken. No kind of like stopping, no stopping and coming back, no starting and then slowing down and then speeding up again and starting and speeding up again. This is all one big pace across the line. If you remember that graph I showed you from last week, where I'll put it here, then I'll erase it. But we're looking to be down here across this time range, nice and sustainable. Not this, not this. This is where we want to be. We want to find ourselves across that time spectrum where we're just holding on and just letting that thing go for an extended period of time. So that's the information on what MAP 10 is. Now, what I want to show you guys here below with all these numbers and questions is how to implement it. So how do you go and use this for yourself to kind of get the full benefit of it and learn about it? So again, MAP 10, a 60-minute interval at a sustainable pace. This is a 4-hour race pace, and this is our starting aerobic progression. How do we use it? 3 words I want you to pay attention to while you're doing this. Cyclical, simple, and repeatable. Cyclical. So what are we looking for here? Something that can be done again and 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 again. And we're just gonna keep going and going and going. Simple, low skill, something that, you're not gonna stress about skill. This is all just about capacity. This is about just doing something. So bring muscle ups, not an option. Push-ups, not an option. Squats, not an option. Things that are gonna require skill alongside capacity are not an option here. We need something that we can comfortably use for an hour that's low skill, low intensity, and we can just keep moving and moving and moving. And repeatable. I'm gonna show you here what I mean by that, but repeatable is the most important thing. And intraset repeatability, meaning repeatability within this 60 minutes is what we're looking for. So this 60 minutes from start to finish should look the same. There shouldn't be a spike. When we're doing this, we shouldn't be here and then 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 die off, all right? What we wanna do here is we wanna start the 60 minutes here, and we wanna sustainable just across that right there until the end of your workout or the end of time or whatever it is that you want to do it till. We want to be able to make sure that we're sustaining that pace through the entire period. Now, how do we do that? So, with those 3 words in mind, I want you to think to yourself what movement you might be able to make aerobic. Now, for myself and a lot of people, even if you can make something higher skill aerobic, we're probably not going to do it. The best way to do this is by using a bike or a rower. But I want to start by kind of going over how much. So how much should you be doing this? So with this, we're looking at anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week. Again, this is a recovery effort. This is something that's going to be done sustainably for 60 minutes. So we want to do this around 1 to 3 times a week. Fit it in within our training, our hard days, to kind of give us a recovery effort, blood flow, a relaxing phase where we're kind of breathing and working on our breathing and just working on moving. How long? This progression, along with the other progressions, and like I said, this takes a really long time because developing a pace is extremely hard, and knowing your pace and really getting into your pace is really important throughout this progression. So we have to stay on this for a while. So these progressions are usually around 8 weeks for each of these. So that's 2 months. So you're gonna be doing this stuff for 2 months, week in and week out, 1 to 3 times a week, really honing in on your pace and developing your pace. Now for the amount of times per week, it really kind of depends on what you're doing, how you're doing it, and your skill level on a lot of that stuff. If you're, which I'm gonna get into here because I have 2 different examples, if you're not able to just hop on a bike and go for 60 minutes, then we'll work up to that, but maybe we're not doing that, maybe we're doing that more than 3 times a week, or more than twice a week, or once a week. If you're able to just hop on a bike, maybe we're just doing that once a week to kind of implement that within a recovery session for your lifting and other things that you're doing. So pace, again, the 4-hour race pace, it's really important. This is the pace we need to be thinking about while we're doing this. We need to be holding this for 4 hours and making sure that we're sustaining it. The implements, like I said, what are the best things that we can use? Biking, rowing, and walking are probably the top 3. Rowing even is kind of like because it's pretty high skill movement and it would take a lot to work somebody up to that for 60 minutes. But like the bike and the row and walking, these are like 100% my go-tos. Like I do the bike, it's sustainable. The seat hurts my butt a little bit, but like other than that, it's just easy work for an hour or for 60 minutes. And walking is something that anybody can do. They can go out and walk and build up their pace to that and develop a pace. What are we looking for here? So we're looking for the pace, and I'm going to keep saying it because that's the most important thing here. We're looking for our pace, and we can find that on the bike and the row and the walk by time, calories, meters, distance, whatever it is that you want to measure. But I want you to decide what that is, and that's going to be kind of your measuring factor for these. After that, once we find our pace, because this is literally the most important thing, is finding our pace. This right here we need to find. Because from that pace is how we increase. We're going to increase our volume. We're going to increase that by either increasing our days, increasing our sessions, or intra sessions or blocks within our session, and our time on the bike or time, doing this. And the last thing I want you to pay attention to before I get into all this is this parasympathetic system that we're introducing to ourselves. A lot of people need to learn about this stuff. This is the system within our body that promotes recovery or starts that process. This is what gets us into this. So this is going to put us in a parasympathetic state where our body's going to actually introduce itself to recovery, and by just moving blood around the body, feeling a little bit better, getting a nice breathing session in, breathing through the nose, which we talked about in the podcast if you listen to that. But introducing all of this is also one of the more important things, is realizing that we're going to get into this parasympathetic state. All right? So how do we take all this and put it into a sustainable program? So step one. So this guy right here is someone who is able to do 60 minutes. So I'm going to put 60-minute interval. So he's able to do 60 minutes. Or he or she, I'm not trying to offend anybody. This one right here is not able to do 60 minutes. So week one is going to look a lot different for each of these people. So week one for 60 minutes, we're going to hop on a bike and we're going to find that pace. 60 minutes, what's your pace? What is your pace going to be? And we're just looking at a couple things here. Repeatability, simple, and cyclical. So I'm going to have this person hop on a bike. They're going to figure out their pace and they're going to have to repeat that within the session. So what am I looking for on that? I'm looking for the first 20 minutes, second 20 minutes, and third 20 minutes, all to match. And they're going to equal X, whatever that number is that you're going to pay attention to. First 20 minutes, when I've done it, let's say you get 120 calories. The second minute, you should be at 240 calories. And the third minute, you should be at 360 calories. Now, this is not to the T. We obviously want to be as close as possible, and if we can hit those numbers, that's really good. There's a plus or minus in the beginning. Because this is so long in developing our pace, it's going to be really hard. But one thing we want to try to do is as close as possible as we can get to these within, plus or minus 5 calories or plus or minus, a couple hundred meters. So this is week one for them. Week two, or week one for the person who can't do 60 minutes. I'm going to put can't do. So can't do. Week one for them, depending on what we observe during the assessment, is going to be where they start. If they can do work for 5 minutes, then we're going to start them at 5 minutes. All right. Now, this right here, I'd probably have someone do 1, maybe 2 times a week, but most likely just once a week. So I'm going to put times 1 here. Here, I might have that person do that 3 times a week. And what that progression might look like is 5 minutes day 1, 5 minutes day 2, and then 5 minutes, looking over here, 5 minutes day 3. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so then what we're looking at is week 2. So this person completed all this and they passed, they found their pace, they hit 5 minutes and it was repeatable every single time they did that, and that's good. Week 2 for this person is going to be the same. So we have our pace now, we know what our pace is, and we're going to kind of repeat that through here. And we're going to repeat that through all of this 8 weeks. We're going to try to increase that. We're going to try to make sure we're moving at the same pace, repeating, repeat. And we're just going to run that down here. And we're going to repeat that every single week for 8 weeks until we get so good at this pace that we can close our eyes and just kind of go with it. And this 60 minutes is going to show up down the line, because as we develop this pace, this is where we're going to be. We're just doing this and doing this and doing this and doing this and getting really good at it. Now this side, obviously, is a little bit less complex for someone, and they'll probably just move through the 8 weeks and move on to the next step. For this person who can't, the progression is going to look a little bit different. So week 2, we might look at 5 minutes on day 1, 10 minutes on day 2, and then 5 minutes on day 3. And then from here, it might look like 10 minutes on day 1, 10 minutes on day 2, and then 5 minutes on day 3, and then we just keep working up till we get to that 60-minute interval. So this would look like something, so maybe we do 20 minutes, 20, and then 10, and then we do 30, 20, 20, and then 40, 20, 30, 30, and then we work our way up X minutes, I'm gonna put 50, just to make this simple. 50, maybe 40, 40, and then here we'll try to get to 60 week 8, 60 minutes, just once, all right? So this is spread out across 3 days. Now what's important here is that this progression for this person might not take 8 weeks. It might be a little bit longer than 8 weeks. So what we need to understand here though is this can be progressed, but with the 60 minutes, it is a long time. So to get to this initial pace, we may need to break this down a little bit more and introduce this across a spectrum for each person. Now this is a very rough a rough idea of what I do for somebody. I'd obviously have to look into a little bit more of what they're doing and how they're doing it, but this is just kind of the idea that you get. We progress it slowly over the weeks until we get to that 60 minutes, and then we'd hop into this. So we'd right into here, and then we'd hop into this, where we're finding that pace for 60 minutes, and then we're repeating that within the set for 8 weeks, and then we would go on to map 10. So I know that's a lot. I hope you guys got everything. I can repeat it again. So we're going over that. This is the starting progression. This is our race pace, how you find it. The 60-minute interval at a sustainable pace. We're looking for simplicity before complexity, meaning these movements are simple and we can repeat them within the sets. How do we use it? Remember these 3 words: cyclical, simple, and repeatable. You know, we're looking to do this 1 to 3 times a week, depending. If you're going 60 minutes, you're probably only going to do it once. If you're going, 5, 5, 5, 5, 10, working your way up, we'll probably do it closer to 2 or 3 times a week. And then, this is an 8-week progression we're looking at if we're moving well and moving through the 60 minutes. If not, it might take a little bit longer, but we're still going to be around that 8-week mark to try to get there. The pace is the 4-hour race pace. So we're taking our pace that we're developing times 4, which is 60 minutes times 4, and that's our race pace, and that's what we should be aiming for. The implements: bike, row, walk, something that's easy, sustainable. You don't really have to think about, you're just doing it. Looking for pace. Again, most important thing, we have to find our pace here within the 60 minutes. That's why it is so long. It's putting you in a position where you have to find a pace. You're not gonna be able to go hard on the bike for 60 seconds, or 60 minutes, sorry. A lot of people can go 60 seconds, 60 minutes. So going hard for 60 minutes is not an option here. We're gonna have to pace this, or else we're not gonna be able to do it. There's just no way. We wanna see a nice sustainable output over that 60 minutes and not just really high at the beginning and then just fall off and just kind of hang on. So a nice sustainable pace, and with that, we'll be able to increase our volume by looking at the days we're doing it, the amount in a session that we're doing it, the amount of time that we're doing it within a session, and this parasympathetic system is where we want to be. So this is how we do it. This is what it is. This is how we implement it. And next week, we're going to be diving into map 9, which is a little bit less of a time period, but we really need this to start us off. This is kind of the way to start off this progression and really get into it and know about it. So I appreciate you guys for watching, if you are still watching to this point. And if you have any questions, please reach out. And this is always something that I can work on with you guys. If you want help with that, you can either come here, or I do remote coaching myself. So just reach out and we can kind of talk about it, and we'll figure it out. So I just want to let you guys know. Thank you. Skinny Boy out.